I don't know what it is, but from the very start, this show has just never seemed to be able to form its own identity. Let's discuss. Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button, and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
So I'm going to get into my thoughts on episode 3 of Chucky in just a moment, but first I want to talk about how I recently watched Child's Play 1 and 2. And these movies very quickly reminded me of what the Chucky TV series could have been. Now, full disclosure, it had been a while since I seen them, but as I was watching them, I couldn't help but think about how much fun they were. And also how those movies set the character of Chucky apart from all the other slashers we were getting at that time.
No shit.
And those first two movies just have their own unique tone to them. Yes, of course, they have their comedic moments, but they still manage to treat the character of Chucky somewhat seriously, especially compared to the more parody version of him that we get now. Because Chucky is still portrayed as being somewhat intimidating in both Child's Play 1 and 2, and he's certainly not taking time away from being a horror icon in those movies to lecture the audience about anything. Those movies make you forget about the fact that you are running away from a 3-foot-tall demonic doll. And you also get immersed in the world that it's happening in. In Child's Play 2 specifically, I couldn't get over how vibrant and alive that world feels. Especially if you take a long hard look at that finale in the factory. They built these huge sets with these bright colors that is contrasted by this homicidal doll who will stop at nothing to get what he wants, no matter how much they try to beat, burn, and destroy him. Chucky is basically like the Terminator in that movie. It's just a great horror experience.
Fuck you, asshole.
And you buy into it because he has the very clear goal of trying to escape this body that he doesn't want to be trapped in. And that brings me to the Chucky TV series, which has always felt very dull and lifeless to me. And as I already mentioned, Chucky is basically a parody of himself at this point, and it feels like they decided to take the tone of the later, more inferior Chucky sequels and try to replicate that in the TV show, and I just don't understand that approach. It's this uninspired, weird vibe to this show that is just not translating to me. When it comes right down to it, I'm typically bored to tears watching the Chucky TV series.
That's right, it stinks!
It always feels like they're more concerned with preaching something to you or proving some poorly written point to you rather than just entertaining you. I'm not looking for Chucky to change my life. And I could look beyond the cheesy dialogue if this show didn't try to always take itself so seriously at times. It's basically a mismatch of tones that hasn't really worked from the start, and that's what makes it very hard to be connected to it because there is no direction.
I don't give a fuck.
Episode 3 mainly features Jake, Devin, Lexi, and now Nadine trying to break Chucky and get information from him. Which is a pretty bold strategy when you think about it because Chucky is already pretty fucked up. I mean, wouldn't common sense tell you that these type of tactics wouldn't work on someone like him? Regardless, Jake decides to take the Clockwork Orange approach on Chucky. Yet another reference to a famous movie that makes you just want to watch that movie instead of watching this. And he basically forces his eyelids to stay open as he plays music and shows him different images. First showing him horror images, which Chucky enjoyed, and then switching it up and showing him stuff with unicorns and rainbows. Now this either breaks him or it doesn't, depending on whether or not we find out that this Chucky is faking or not. But either way, it appears that he is now good guy Chucky. The only problem is that now he doesn't remember any of his evil plans. And again, this is if we are assuming that this is all a work. Devin continues to be one of the only somewhat reasonable people in this show. He's also still probably one of the most likable, and he's basically not buying any of Chucky's bullshit. Good for him.
I knew it, I'm surrounded by assholes.
You see, Jake's whole thing is that he still feels guilty about what Chucky did to everyone. So he wants to do things differently now. He doesn't want to just kill Chucky. It's more important to him to gain an understanding of what Chucky wants. In the meantime, leaving him alive is just getting more people killed. Great job, Jake.
What an idiot! Oh, what a loser!
If things are starting to sound a bit convoluted here, it's because they are. And with Jake and Devin being at odds over this situation and how to deal with Chucky, this is the first time we kind of see them having issues since they got together. Plus you have the character of Father Bryce very clearly trying to drive a wedge between them. I assume this is his solution for trying to make them less gay or something. Father Bryce wants Chucky returned to his office or else, and this leads to Devin being punished. And Jake later tells Devin that he's going to need a Manny after all this work that Father Bryce is making him do. I swear the dialogue in this show sometimes, I don't know if it's just that bad, if it's cringe, if it's intentional, or if it's just pointless. Maybe it's all of those things. While Lexi is watching Chucky, he asks her questions like the kid from Uncle Buck, eventually prodding her until we get to the topic of Junior, which is obviously a very sensitive topic for Lexi. And this is yet another one of the reasons why it feels like Chucky is faking all this.
That makes sense.
Nadine goes to confession where Father O'Malley is basically strangled to death in the booth right next to her. This is done by one of the Chuckies and the kill mostly happens off screen, which is unfortunate considering most of the horror elements in this show are few and far between. Also, there is this question of whether or not this is good guy Chucky who is faking, or is it the new Chucky doll that was recently delivered in this episode? Does it really matter? Probably not.
I don't care!
Jake eventually goes to confront Father Bryce about Devon's punishment. And Father Bryce basically tells Jake in not so many words that it's his fault that he's in this situation. And let's be honest, all of this is actually Jake's fault. Later, Father Bryce does return to find a Chucky doll on his desk. And again, we aren't really sure which Chucky doll it is or how it got there. But a surprised Devon is eventually released from his responsibilities. This episode concludes with the most over-the-top horror moment yet in this show, as Chucky does the Lloyd Christmas from Dumb and Dumber and completely punches a hole through the bully Trevor's chest. This moment just felt completely random to me and quite puzzling actually. I never really saw Chucky as being capable of that sort of thing. That feels more like a Jason Voorhees type kill than anything. It just seemed very impractical at the time and done for pure shock value, and honestly it wasn't as shocking as they wanted it to be. Maybe this was an Easter egg because Chucky is going to be a new downloadable character in the next Mortal Kombat game. One can hope.
Get over here!
Overall, episode 3 of Chucky just left me feeling bored and uninterested. It's pretty much reminding me of why I gave up on this franchise after they dropped Child's Play out of the name. Because it feels like a just completely unrelated franchise at this point that's gone on way too long. And typically they seem more concerned with everything except telling a good story and entertaining us.
Dealing with haters and fake fans is the absolute most toxic thing on earth. You will learn to accept things for what they are, and stop being so critical, even if I have to teach you the hard way. Your time is almost up. The end of Real Shift is imminent. I'm coming for you very soon.
Y'all be cool. Right on.